Erev Tov, Shavua Tov, and we welcome all the participants in the shir tonight. And it's a big simcha. It's a big joy to see that people go out of their way to make time in order to fulfill the instruction of the Rebbe Shlitah Melech HaMashiach in regard to speeding up the revelation of the Geula through learning Inyane Geula v'Mashiach, the things, the concepts that have to do with Mashiach and Geula, and first and foremost, as they are written in the words of the Rebbe and the Dvar Malchus of the Rebbe, and so on. Being that we're in the 3 weeks, immediately after the fast of Yud Zayin Tammuz, which is in the gematria, the numerical value of Toiv, the word Toiv, or in English, good, the goodness of Tammuz that is hidden in the fasts, and specifically also in the 3 weeks, as we know, it's hinted to in the fact that it's called the 3 weeks and not the 21 days, hinting to the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash, and especially since the Rebbe tells us that everything that has to do with the fasts that are connected with the destruction, Rahman al-San, in the meantime, this is the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. The prophet, the Navi comes and tells us that they are all actually in their pnimius, in their inner essence, they are all not only good, but they are mayadim tevim, they are great holidays, great festivals. As the Navi says, that all these fasts are going to be transformed into days of yamim tevim or mayadim tevim, good days and festivals, and therefore all that has to be done is to reveal the goodness in them immediately now through the learning of Geula and Mashiach. There are different instructions that the Rebbe gives in these 3 weeks. First and foremost, the study, the learning of the laws that pertain to the Beis Hamikdash, that Hilchos Beis HaBechira, as they're brought in the book of law of the Rambam, Maimonides, and second of all, the adding in our giving of charity, of tzedakah, like it says, Gedolah tzedakah shemekareves es hageula, greatest charity, for it hastens the coming of the redemption. And third and foremost, the adding in Ahavas Yisrael, the adding in the love for our fellow Jew. For as we know, the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, especially the second, was because of sinas chinam, baseless hatred, and therefore, in order to go into counteract baseless hatred, we have to bring about and to expound upon the unconditional love for our fellow Jew, and thus bring the revelation of the Rebbe Shlitah Melech HaMashiach on a good and revealed basis, Teichef Miyad Mamish. In regard to the laws of the step, and also we'll be learning the Dvar Malchus immediately after Hilchos Beis HaBechira. But in order to commence with the question that rises is, what does this have to do with the hastening of the Beis Hamikdash, the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash? We're just sitting and we're learning laws that pertain to the Beis Hamikdash. And in regard to this, there's a famous sikha that the Rebbe mentions. We'll read it inside. It's actually also the introduction. I'm holding here the Hilchos Beis HaBechira that was translated into English, and here you can have a look. Hilchos Beis HaBechira, and inside, it was translated by Rabbi Eliyahu Talger, and inside he also brings the introduction, the words of the Sikha of the Rebbe in regard to the study of the Hilchos Beis HaBechira as follows. Hashem showed Yecheskel the form of the house of the Beis Hamikdash and declared, "Tell the people of Israel of the house of the Beis Hamikdash that Yecheskel should tell them about the Beis Hamikdash and measure the design, and also give them the measurements of the Beis Hamikdash, the upcoming Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash that will be built." Yecheskel answered the Eibishter and said, "Master of the earth, why are you telling me to go in to tell Israel the form of the house of the Beis Hamikdash? They are now in exile in the land of enemies. Is there anything they can do about it? In other words, in a rhetoric question, what can they do? The Beis Hamikdash is destroyed in Eretz Yisrael, and they're in Bothel, and they're in Babylon. Let them be until they return from the exile. Then I will go and tell them. Yeah, when they come back from exile, I'll tell them about the Beis Hamikdash. I'll tell them about the measurements of the Beis Hamikdash. But to talk to them now, it's like sprinkling salt in the open wounds. It's giving them pain in Chas v'Sholom. Hashem answered Yechezkel Hanavi, should the construction of my house be ignored because my children are in exile? Hashem declared, the study of the temple's design, of the design of the Beis Hamikdash in the Torah can be equated to its actual construction. In other words, when we study the laws of the Beis Hamikdash, Hilchos Beis Habchira, it's considered as though we are actually building the Beis Hamikdash, constructing the Beis Hamikdash. Go tell them to study the temple's form, Hashem says to Yechezkel Hanavi. As a reward for their study and their occupation with it, I will consider it as if they actually built the temple. And thus the Rebbe comes and tells us, and this is the word. This is the words that comes from the Medrash. The Rebbe comes and tells us that this is basically not only hastening the coming of the third Beis Hamikdash, it's actually building the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash as we go, halacha by halacha, and word for word. The Rambam opens his book with his preface, and the book of divine service. Seek out the peace of Yerushalayim. Those who love you shall prosper. It's a verse from Tehillim, from Psalms. Hilchos Beis Habchira, the laws of Hashem's chosen house. Included in this text are 6 mitzvahs, 3 positive commandments and 3 negative commandments. They include the following. Number 1, to build the sanctuary. Number 2, not to build the altar with hewn stone. In other words, stone that was cut with iron. 3, not to ascend upon the altar using steps, but to use a plank, a flat plank. 4, to fear the temple. 5, to guard it on all sides. 6, never to cease the watch over it. These mitzvahs are explained in the ensuing chapters. We'll read the first halacha in Hebrew, and then we'll translate. Mitzvahs asay lases bais laHashem, muchan liyos makrivim beyakorbones. V'cheigigin elov sholosh pe'omim bashana, shneimar v'osu li migdosh. It's a positive command to construct a house for Hashem, prepared for sacrifices to be offered within. We must celebrate there 3 times a year, as it is written, and it's a mitzvah in the Torah, and you shall make me a sanctuary. We'll go back to the Hebrew. Ukvar nisparish bater mishkan she'asa Moshe Rabbeinu. V'haya lefi sha'a, shenemar ki lo bosem ad ato v'gemer. The sanctuary constructed by Moshe Rabbeinu is already described in the Torah. Now, we're talking about the Mishkan, Oyel Mayed, the tent of meeting, and so on. It was only temporary, as it is written, for at present you have not come unto the resting place and the inheritance. In other words, we haven't come to the last station, and therefore the Oyel Mayed, the tabernacle, was only something temporary. And later on, the Beis Hamikdash was built in Yerushalayim by Shlomo HaMelech the first, the second, later on, 70 years later, after the destruction, by Ezra Sefer, Ezra the scribe, and the last and the most noblest, the third and the eternal, shall be built Teichef Umiyad Mamish by the Rebbe Shlitah Melech HaMoshiach. Yechi Adoneinu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Chai V'Kayam L'Olam Voed. Amen. We go to the Dvar Malchus, and in the Dvar Malchus itself, we wanted to point out that the pages, as they are in the PDF file, are side by side. They're not page after page, and therefore there's a little inconvenience that we have to go from one page to another page, and it's not necessarily the next page, but it's also going backwards. But at the moment, we're on page 3 in the PDF file, and we're on Ace Gimel. In the hard copy, we're on page 94, Ace Gimel. And the Rebbe goes on to say as follows. And in this year itself, with in addition to the specific the specific general concepts of the month and the day of the month, the general week and the day of the week. The month of Nisan, in which the Sicha is being given over, we're talking about the Sicha of Chof Ches, Koyach Nisan, the power, the strength of Nisan, the 28th of Nisan, is the month. Nisan is the month of redemption. In which was the Exodus, the redemption from Egypt. The days of your exodus from the land of Egypt, and in which will be the upcoming redemption. I will show them wonders. As the saying of our rabbis of blessed memory, Benisan nigolu avesenu, ubenisan nigalu, uvenisan asidin ligoil. In Nisan, they, our forefathers, were redeemed, and in the month of Nisan, they are in the future going to be redeemed. This is from the Talmud in tractate Rosh Hashanah. And in the month of Nisan itself, Halayla, the night, shebe'emtza u'mechaber, that is in the middle and connects Yom Chov Zayin Nisan, the day of the 27th of Nisan, the Yom Chov Ches Nisan, and the day of the 28th of Nisan. And what do these represent? The Rebbe explains. Chov Zayin Nisan, the 27th of Nisan, Oisius Zach, make up the letters of the word Zach, pure. Al derech shemen zayit Zach, similar to pure olive oil. Miloshen behirus, and this is a terminology of that which is clear. Meire umadish, this instructs and stresses hagilui, the concept of revelation. Arenu, I will show them the Nisan of the month of Nisan, which is the month of Geula, the Rebbe adds. And we may add in regard to the virtue of the number 27, Tes Peomim Gimel, which is 9 times the number 3. Hainu, in other words, Sheinyonai Shel Nisan, that the concept of Nisan is, which is the month of the Geula, Hu Be'ofen Shel Shilush Mishulash, which is in a manner of tripling a triple, tripling a triangle, as the Rebbe says. The Chazaka, tripling a triangle of what? Of Chazaka, of a status which is something that has been repeated 3 times. Biklas Zimnei Hava Chazaka, that 3 times something that is repeated is a Chazaka. B'sholish Pa'amim Nases Chazaka. A Chazaka is something that expresses a permanent status of that which has been repeated 3 times. Gimel Pe'omim Gimel, 3 times 3. Gimel Pe'omim, 3 times. All right? 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times is 27. Al derech hamidubar kama pe'omim, as has been mentioned numerous times. Lichlolas Hashana, in regard to the general concept of the year, Shemudgosh Ba'inyan HaGeula, in which the concept of redemption is stressed in it, Shehas Chalasa Verishisa, that the beginning and the start is Begimel Yomim Ritzufim Shel Kedusha, with 3 days, continuous days of holiness. Shechayzim v'nishlim b'chutz la'aretz, that return and are repeated, as we find in chutz la'aretz, abroad, Gimel Pa'amim, 3 times. Bereish Hashanah, we have 3 continuous days of holiness. Rosh Hashanah, because there was a Shabbos after the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Ub'shmini Atzeres, and with Shmini Atzeres, the Yontif of Shmini Atzeres, and the Yontif of Simchas Torah. Again, in Chutz La'aretz, abroad, not in Eretz Yisrael. The Chov Ches Nisan and the 28th of Nisan, Oisias Koyach, are the letters of the word Koyach, strength. Meir Umadgish, this instructs and stresses the strength and the power, the Nisan Geula, of the month of Nisan, which represents, like we said before, the Rebbe says, redemption. This includes and is especially the Pashtus in its simple form, Nesinas HaKoyach, the empowering of power, to bring the redemption in actuality, literally. And this is an additional addition. As far as the concept of the general week, and the day of the week. Okay, what are we talking about? What is the general week and what is the day of the week? The general week that we find ourselves in, Parashas Shmini. When we're talking about weeks, we're talking about the portions that are read that particular week for Shabbos. What was the portion that was read that Shabbos? The portion of Shmini. Shmini kosher minyan geula. For we see that the portion of Shmini is connected to the concept of redemption. Uvashavua the Parashas Shmini Atzmai, and in the week of the portion of Shmini itself, Hashavua Hashlishi the Parashas Shmini, the day of the week of Tuesday in the portion of Shmini. The Parashas Shmini Chazaka Ba'inyan the Shmini. It is the 3rd week of the portion of Shmini, because then, according to the order of the calendar, Shmini was read 3 weeks in consecutive order, one after the other. It's not always that way, but here we see that it was read that year three times, 3 consecutive weeks, one after the other. Chazaka ba'inyan the Shmini, and thus we have a chazaka. Again, something that is repeated 3 times that shows that the consistency, the permanency of the concept that is repeated. And this is the concept of the portion of Shmini. V'hayem b'shavua, and the day of the week, the Rebbe comes and tells us, which is Erev Shabbos, the eve of Shabbos, because the Sikha was Thursday night. In other words, the night, the evening that is going and that is entering Friday. Shebei Kairin Parshas Shmini Kula, in which we read that coming Shabbos, we read the entire portion of Shmini. And as it is in the calendar that year, this year, Kairin Vayi Bayem Hashmini, we read, and it was on the 8th day, Bapam Hashminis, the 8th time. Shmini Shebishmini, which is the 8th of the 8th. In other words, the 8th time that we read the portion of Shmini, the portion of Parashas Shmini. Geula Shebegeula, and the Rebbe relates to this as the redemption within the redemption. Tachlis Hashlemus Bageula, and this is the utteral completion of the redemption. And here I think in the PDF file, we have to go to page 4. And we must add in the virtue of the day, as far as the connection and the involvement of the upcoming days. From the 28th of Nisan we go to the 29th of Nisan, Erev Rosh Chodesh, Iyar, which is the eve of Rosh Chodesh, the Hebrew month of Iyar, Shanikra Yom Kippur Kotan. And therefore, since it's the eve of Rosh Chodesh, it's called the minor Yom Kippur. Me'ein v'dukmas inyana shel Yom Kippurim, and it is similar, and it has the parallel to the day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, Yom Chasunose, which is called in the Torah, in the Tanakh, the day of his wedding, the day of the wedding of Hashem with the nation of Israel. Yom Kippurim shenitnu b'luchos achronos, Yom Kippur, in which the last set of the luchos of the tablets were given, sheshleimusei b'geula asida, that the completion of this will be in the future redemption. For then will be the ultimate marriage of the congregation of Israel, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Holy One blessed be. And from this we come to the beginning of the month itself, Meilad HaLevana, the head of the month, which is the birth of the moon, the Dugmasei B'Yisrael, and that which is in exemplary in regard to the Jewish nation. Shedeimim LaLevana, Umeinim LaLevana. For we, the Jewish nation, are similar to the moon, and we count our months by the orbit of the moon. And we are in the future going to be renewed just like the moon is renewed. So also the Jewish nation we are promised to be renewed. And this is in the future redemption. And in our matter at hand, that Reish Chodesh year is 2 days. We come from the first day of Rosh Chodesh to the second day of Rosh Chodesh, in which we actually start the counting of the days of the month of Iyar, the first of Iyar. For in this is stressed the concept of the redemption. For which is in the month, the beginning of the month. For we see that the beginning of the month is doubled over. We have the first day of Rosh Chodesh and the second day of Rosh Chodesh. And we find a greater addition in the Kfiyus, in the order of the calendar of this year. That the eve of Rosh Chodesh, when do we see the eve of Rosh Chodesh falls? We see that the eve of Rosh Chodesh falls on the eve of Shabbos, Erev Rosh Chodesh. And the Rebbe elaborates. When the eve of Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos, Magdimim Hayonim, the Yom Kippur Kotan, we come and we observe earlier the concepts of the minor Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur Kotan, Sheshayachim le'erev Rosh Chodesh, that are connected to the eve of Rosh Chodesh. Lahayomim shelifnei HaShabbos. And where do we bring them earlier to? To the days that come before Shabbos. Since on the day of Shabbos we don't say Tachanan. And on the day of Shabbos, Erev Rosh Chodesh Mamish, the eve of Rosh Chodesh itself, we only have the service of joy and happiness. Uviyem simchaschem elu hashaboses, like it states in the Torah. And on your days of rejoicing, this is referring to the Shabbosim, the days of Shabbos of the year. And furthermore, and this is the main thing, when the eve of Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos, it stresses the concept of the redemption. Also, as far as Shabbos is concerned, and this is similar and exemplifies that which it states in the Talmud and Tractate Talmud, a day which is entirely Shabbos and rest for eternity. And from the second day of Rosh Chodesh, Aleph Iyar, the first of the month of Iyar, by the base of Iyar, we come to the second day of Iyar, which is as known the birthday of the Rebbe Hamarash, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe. It is accepted by the Chassidim, the saying in regard to the virtue of his day of birth, the Rebbe Maharash's birth, Rabbi Shmuel. The sphere of Tiferes, which is in the counting of the Eimer, the counting of Tiferes, beauty within beauty. The Inyan Zekosher Gam Imehanagose, and this concept is also connected with his manner of behavior. Hamiyuchadis is special behavior, in a manner which is initially going from above, not dealing with all those things that might be holding us back when we are on the lower level. We totally discontinue all those things that might be holding us back, and we go from above in order to go and to overcome any challenge. As the Rebbe Maharash's famous saying, Die Welt so, als wenn man kennt a runtergeht, the world says that when we can't go from underneath, from below, geht man arriba. So then we make the extra effort and we go from above. Und ich so, and I, the Rebbe Maharash says, as medarf lechatchila arriba, that we must initially go from above when we encounter any challenge that holds us up in this study of Torah, the observance of the mitzvahs, and the following of Hashem's ways. Anything in life, basically. Ha'olam sover shekasher efshar lelechas milamato holchim milamaylo. Ha'olam sover shekasher efshar lelechas milamato holchim milamaylo. The world is under the impression that when we can't go from below, so we go from above. Va'ani sover, and I am under the impression, or I hold, the Rebbe Maharash comes and instructs us that initially one must go from above, not to save the extra effort, but initially to do the best we can, and then when we do the best that we can, Hashem will do the rest and help us overcome any challenge in life. And according to the order of Lechatchila Rebbe, as explained above, this brings about an activization initially. In other words, even all those things that might have been passed, that we didn't go and bring about this activity of Lechatchila Rebbe, this behavior of going initially from above. It all has an effect in retrospect. I know, in other words, the Rebbe explains, That all the concepts in the days beforehand, beginning with the 27th of Nisan, Zach Nisan, the pure day of the month of Nisan, Naisim, they become Milechatchila Riber in a manner of initially going over Lechatchila Riber Ubeoifen, and in a manner the Tiferes, and in a manner of beauty within beauty. And this, the Rebbe tells us, is something that we have to initiate in our everyday life. Teichef Miyad Mamish, with the coming and the revelation of the Rebbe Shlitah Melech HaMoshiach on a good and revealed basis, and Teichef Miyad Mamish, and literally with great happiness and joy of the heart, immediately now. Like the Navi says, these days shall be transformed into days of happiness and joy, and good festivals on a revealed basis. And the main thing is that the Rebbe stresses, immediately now. Amen.